Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about HIMS. HIMS, the stock is down 7% since yesterday, and it's largely because the market is thinking that HIMS is just a GLP-1 story and nothing else. And so, of course, yesterday you had an announcement from Lilly saying they were dropping by up to 50% some of their entry-level GLP-1s, and as a result of that, a stock like HIMS took a dive of minus 7%. Other companies in the sector also took a dive. But I just want to point out that HIMS is just a stock that's been thrown around different narratives by short sellers, by many retail investors, by a lot of online communities. And I think, it doesn't faze me. To me, it's rather unfair, but it's our opportunity, in my view, to buy this stock cheap. And because it's unfair to call HIMS like just a GLP-1 story, I think, and it's unfair. Back in the day, they used to call this stock just a ED pill company. I thought that was unfair too. Just because it's unfair, let me just do myself my own unfair comparison. So I'm going to compare HIMS to Lilly, and I'm going to compare it to Novo Nordisk, right? The two companies that are maker of GLP-1s. Of course, it's an unfair comparison because Lilly and Novo are proven companies, large, established, proven companies with investment grade ratings that are in the indices, so you can't really compare, but I'm just going to do it anyway for the fun of it. And when you do it anyway for the fun of it, let's just take enterprise value over revenue. You can see that HIMS is trading at about 5 times EV over revenue, and Lilly is trading at 80 times EV over revenue. 80 times sales, 83 times sales is what Lilly is trading at. 59 times sales is what Novo is trading at. So where's the nosebleed valuation? In my view, it's clearly the Lilly, it's clearly the Novo. These companies really, they do well because of their patents, and it's an established industry. But nonetheless, the more volatile player, in my view, is HIMS. And where is the money to be made at? In my view, just for me, no investment advice, but just for me, that is HIMS. That is a small company. It's easy to see a small company go from a $3 billion enterprise value to a 20 or 30 billion, and that's how you get a 10 bagger. Also, HIMS is cheap, not only compared to what it's being compared to, right? The GLP-1 story. It's cheap compared to GLP-1 drug makers, but it's also cheap compared to just about any other stock. And this was my video from yesterday where I cover this, where you can see that HIMS is the absolute cheapest stock out of all of the stock that I cover. Only second, Stone is second to HIMS, but comparison really as cheap as Stone, but HIMS is slightly cheaper and growing faster. So this stock, as far as me analyzing companies, I can't find anything cheaper. And now it's a GLP-1 stock. Before, people online on the internet, they were quick to call it just an ED pill company, and they were using less respectful words, throwing it at the company, saying, "Oh, this is just what you do," just dismissing what this company does, just not taking them seriously, and that's why that stock traded down to $3. Narratives drive a stock. And if you've been following for the channel for a while, you know that, well, I'm a long-term investor. All of these stocks I want to own for at least 10 years. I'm not selling the stock anytime before 2030, provided there's no catastrophe on their end. But as long as everything looks good, I'm going to keep it. And so that's why I didn't sell at 24 to buy back at 17 or 18. I think it's a game that you can win, 5 times, 10 times, but one time you don't win it, that can entirely hurt your returns, or at least that's my style of investing. Some people may be better at trading around positions than I am. This is not what I do. I look at this stock as a very long-term hold, and this is how I've historically defined the stock. The stock I've defined historically as this, little kind of joking math equation style, writing it. HIMS is what? It's a doctor, right? An eDoctor, a digital doctor, plus a digital pharmacy put together, minus insurance. This is how I've defined it, right? There's a doctor, there's a pharmacy, it's only in one price, it's innovative, it's a subscription, the price of a subscription covers the provider visit, and the insurance is out of the way, which means that if there's no insurance out of the way, you can see a provider in 24 hours or 48 hours, you don't have to worry about the pricing, you know what you're going to be paying, how it's going to work. HIMS, in their latest annual report, this is what they introduced, and I think it looks really good. Their motto, I hope that's going to be their motto because it's a pretty good one, total care, totally different. I like it very much. Total Care, totally different. This is a much more customer-friendly way to say really what I'm trying to mean here. But because of course, electronic, what I mean is digital, right? It's the digital is the way of the world, is the way we're headed, and this is a great way to put it into perspective. I love that motto. Whoever came up with that motto at HIMS is really good. So, why is HIMS different, or rather, should I say, what would I compare HIMS to, or what industry would I place HIMS into? Because I don't place it as a GLP-1 story. To me, HIMS is not a GLP-1 story whatsoever. It is just the hype of the moment, right? Of course, that's good. They're launching GLP-1s. You know, the insiders are happy. Their stocks are more valuable because of GLP-1, all of that. But over the long run, GLP-1 is just one product. It's just one product. Maybe that product is going to be as big as ED. Maybe it's going to be as big as SSRI, which is very kind of psychology segment. That's depression, anxiety. That's also gonna be big. Maybe it's gonna be as big as what they're planning on introducing next, like diabetes management. Think about how huge that would be. You know, heart disease, testosterone treatment. They have huge markets coming up. GLP-1s are just one market for HIMS. I want to talk about who they're competing with. So to me, HIMS compares to or competes with big pharmacy chains. And what HIMS does, in my view, it's like a big pharmacy, but with something extra special, with a twist. So what is the twist, right? Well, you go to the pharmacy, you say, I want a drug, and today it's entirely plausible today that people do their own research. You know, it's kind of like real estate. If you look for a house, you're going to go online and research it yourself. You know, oftentimes doctors, the information about drugs is out there. You may know what you need. You may know your symptoms better when you explain them, and you may know what you need. But of course, you still have to see a doctor. You still have to see a provider, because these RX, they're regulated. So the way this works, of course, is that seeing the provider, whether it's a nurse practitioner, the physician assistant, the medical doctor, seeing that provider, that is covered by your subscription cost if you end up being prescribed the drug. If you're not prescribed the drug, you don't pay. If they don't bill you, if a provider says, no, actually, that's not what you need. You know what? Actually, your problem is a little bigger than whatever drug you thought you needed. You have a little bigger problem. Let me refer you to someone else. So I'm sorry, I can't help you, right? It happens. Providers sometimes do that. It is their own judgment that lets them do that. Well, if a provider tells you no, you don't get charged. Isn't that beautiful? Meds are often cheaper than copays. They're cheaper than copays in many cases. You know, unless you're a little sneaky in the way you work with pharmacies and you go with GoodRx and you pull up the GoodRx app and you try to say, oh, look, this is cheaper. Why don't you use this coupon? You know, there's often, it's very non-transparent the way drugs are priced. HIMS makes it very transparent, makes it very quick, and that has a lot to do with the fact that there is no insurance that are used, and so it doesn't drive up the costs. And they only provide more commonplace, more profitable, more mass scale products. And that is why I believe they are a serious threat. They are a serious disruptor. They're a disruptor because they're focusing on the most profitable items. They're focusing on the 20% of the actions leading to the 80% of the results. I also think the way they approach prescriptions is a little more ethical, and let me explain to you why. And of course, this matters to a lot of 21st century customers. Why do I think this is kind of a better way to do it? Well, if you live in a traditional world and a visit costs $200, in some areas it's more, but let's just assume it's $200. I've seen doctors' visit go as high as $500 in some areas. But anyways, let's assume it's $200. If you pay $200 to a visit and you have to see a doctor, well, there's two things that may happen. A, the doc, they see you, so they may feel pressured to do something. They may feel pressure like they have to do something to help you, even though they know you don't need help. Even though you're good, they're still going to feel pressure to help you. Some, not all, but I'm saying it's a possibility. so that you don't feel bad about paying that $200. And on the other hand, as the patient, you may be upset if you pay for a visit and then nothing happens from that visit because the doctor finds out that actually you don't need what you thought you needed, or the doctor says he's not confident about your case and the doctor wants to give you a referral, and that prolongs the process, that increases the cost. So because of that, I think it's more ethical. If a mechanic looks at your car and there's nothing they can do to your car, to me, the best way to handle it, and many small mom and pop garage do it like that. The mechanic looks at your car. They can't help you. They just tell you, sorry, I can't help you. And they don't charge you $200. Well, it doesn't work like that in medicine. And I think doing it that way is a better way to do it. So point number one, right? Also, and this is important, I could make the case that online pharmacies are going to be the only type of pharmacies left pretty quickly. And, Amazon Pharmacy sees that coming. There's a lot of other online pharmacies, of course, not just HIMS. But I could make the case that, especially in rural areas, online pharmacies are going to be the only game in town in rural areas, because let's ask ourselves the question. If you look at, there's 45,000 physical pharmacies in the US, but let's just look at the big groups, right? The big one. Let's look at CVS, right? So for example, CVS has 9,900 pharmacies. Their market cap is $73 billion. They have $177 billion in debt. Walgreens, they bought Rite Aid, by the way, 5 years back. Walgreens, 8,250 pharmacies. Their market cap is $9 billion. And think about the debt ratio. The debt is $67.5 billion. They have $67.5 billion and only $9 billion in market cap. How are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? How are they going to be able to roll over that debt at current interest rates? Powell needs to drop interest rates ASAP, because, I'll give you a hint. These 8,000, these 9,000, these 45,000 pharmacies, they hire a lot of people. And oftentimes good paying job, especially for the pharmacists. So the tipping point, what I call the tipping point, what does it take for these companies to be hurt? Well, it's not a 50% drop in sales, right? It takes much smaller, like a teeny tiny drop in traffic. If you're over-leveraged, that can be enough to trigger a bankruptcy. That can be enough for you to not be able to meet your debt obligations. And I don't know what went through them when they did all of these investments, not thinking that pharmacies would go online, right? They should have seen that coming in 2006, 2007, and be like, okay, halt, we're not building new pharmacies, we're going to build warehouses. And that's what HIMS does. HIMS has fully automated warehouses for shipping the drugs. That's what Amazon does. That's what all of the HIMS competitors do, right? Like the Romans and the LifeMD. To me, that's the way that these things are going to be headed. And so if you have a lack of pharmacy, think about the fact that this may be the only way to get drugs, right? And so the competition is in a vicious cycle, is in this vicious cycle that the competition is in, with brick and mortar competition. Let me move on to another aspect of that. I compare HIMS, and this is to a lesser extent. I really want to make clear that this is to a lesser extent. But HIMS disrupts what I'm going to call low-stakes doctor visit, the more rent-seeking part of healthcare. There's still all over small mom-and-pop doctor offices, small mom-and-pop clinics, local clinics, etc., right? If you're a doctor, being an entrepreneur, that's a common way to make a living, and there's a lot of those. I could do the same thing for NPs, for example. And these... There's kind of a bread and butter type visit, which is the easy visits. Like those easy visits are the bread and butter. They're an easy way to make money. If you're a doctor, there's tough ways to make money. You have a patient, you have 15 minutes with a patient, and they come to you with 6 or 7 conditions. That's tough. Or they come to you with a problem and you can't figure out what that is. That's tough, and that's where those physical doctors are not at risk of being disrupted, in my view. But when it's simple things, like things like birth control refills, cold sore outbreak medication, yeast infection, metformin refill, I could go on, heart health, statin refill, whatever, like simple follow-up cases, right? These are the spots where doctors make a lot of money because they're very quick. right? And this is what, in my view, this is what HIMS is going after. Because while not all doctor offices accept the idea of you just making a phone call, hey, I'm out of my birth control or whatever. I obviously don't need birth control, but anyways, let's say he's like, hey, I'm out of my birth control or whatever. And they tell you, oh, well, we need a visit. You need to come into the office to get a refill, right? And that's a $200 paywall or more or less. In some areas, it could be less. But imagine if whenever you need a refill, you need to go back to the doctor visit and pay that fee again. Well, that's entirely gone with HIMS because HIMS has a chat box and you can just chat with your provider, right? They don't make money on the visit side of a section. Paying for the medication if you're prescribed, paying for your medication pays for the doctor. And I think that makes a major difference. And of course, not all of it. Sometimes it's very, very tempting for the doctor to multiply the number of visits needed in order to make more money. You don't need to do that if you're HIMS because you don't charge for the doctor visit. You don't charge for the medical advice in the first place. And that's obviously the way we're headed with AI. With AI and AI doctors, the knowledge, right? The medical knowledge, the diagnostic, the assessment, all of this gray matter that goes into healthcare is slowly going to be dematerialized and is slowly not going to have any value. It's going to be free. It's going to be free because AI makes it so that this diagnosis become free. These recommender systems, which HIMS has a recommender system for drugs called MedMatch, these systems are virtually free. They're the cost of electricity. They're pennies. What is not free, what is always going to cost something, well, it is what comes from the real world, from the worlds of bricks and mortars, i.e. the drugs, the RX, the prescriptions. Those prescriptions, that's the material product, that's the physical product that is going to remain when you start thinking, in my view, 20 years from now. Like 20 years from now, AI doctors might be prevalent, but you're still going to need to physically get the product and buy the product, which is why I also see a merger between pharmacy and doctors, because chemical compounds are the leading way to treat people for issues that they are facing. So all I'm saying is that mom and pop doctors, small clinics, I think they're going to be fine, but they're going to have to deal with more problematic diseases, and it may mean that doctors need more time because the easy cases are gone. And of course, if you have a full day as a doctor and you don't have a lot of easy cases, and you just have tough cases, you see 20 patients and you have 20 tough cases, and you have to write notes and follow-ups and all that sort of stuff for 20 tough cases, well, that's going to be tougher on the doctors because the simple birth control refill or the simple prescription refill, those visits are not there anymore. So that's another point that I wanted to make here, and I think it makes a big difference. So HIMS, mostly pharmacy, and to a lesser extent a competitor to doctor offices. But now that you know where I stand when it comes to HIMS, let me tell you why I view HIMS as a very long-term story. The numbers speak for themselves. The revenue growth is outstanding, growing 52% year over year, still to this day. And you know that if you follow the company since 2022, nobody really thought they would still be growing this fast. I remember recording videos not that long ago saying, oh, they just reached 1 million subscribers. They now have 1.9 million subscribers. Right? So they're going to breach that 2 million by the end of the year. No issues, I don't think. They're going to breach it, no problem. And there's an important thing, and for people who are into moats, this may matter to you. I happen to not be a big believer in moats. I believe when there is disruption, the marketplace is so large that you don't need to engage in rent seeking. You can just have many companies thrive at the same time in the marketplace. But that's okay. If you're into moats and if you enjoy moats, I think HIMS has two main moats that make the customer sticky, which is why this business, the valuation of this business, in my view, should be much closer in line to, say, a SaaS company. Say a SaaS company that kind of operates in the real world, right? Which because SaaS is getting disrupted by AI, which is another story altogether. HIMS is kind of like a SaaS company with a physical component is the way I look at it. It's a sticky product. It's a sticky product for two reasons. Because navigating the healthcare system and understanding how the healthcare system works is not that straightforward, not that easy, especially if you change jobs often, especially if you change your insurance often. It's not that easy to do that. HIMS makes it easy. HIMS makes it at the click of a button, like we're used to with Amazon. In the legacy world, this is an example I've taken many times talking about HIMS, but in the legacy world, it's not one click and you have a doctor show up on your phone within 24 hours. In the legacy world, it's call your insurance or go on the website, but most likely the website doesn't work, so you get a call. Then find a primary care provider. I'm being facetious here, but sometimes you wait months, sometimes you don't wait, but often you wait. Wait to see the PCP. Once you see the PCP, visit to the PCP, drive there physically. And then maybe the PCP is going to be confident in your case enough, and they're going to prescribe you, say, the ED pill, right? The ED pill will be prescribed by the PCP in some cases, but maybe they don't feel confident enough, and since they have their liability to be careful with, and they also care about you, they say, oh, wait a minute, well, I don't really know what to prescribe to you, so let me refer you to a specialist. And if the PCP says, let me refer you to a specialist, you know you got another few months to wait. Because, for example, in the case of ED, that'd be a urologist, so they refer you to the urologist, and then you go to the urologist, you wait 4 months, and then finally, if you see the urologist, you get your ED pills. So this could take 6 months, or you could be lucky, and this could take a month. But with HIMS, you don't have to ask yourself that question. With HIMS, it's 24 hours. So how many orders of magnitude are we compared to the worst case scenario, right? Let's take the 3 months or 4 months scenario, 100 days, and let's compare 100 days to 24 hours, 1 day. So you're 100 times better. You're 2 orders of magnitude better. That's the power of a company like HIMS. You don't have the fact that the legacy traditional brick and mortar process is shooting itself in the foot. That fact makes it that HIMS has a competitive advantage without even wanting one. It's just you just have a competitive advantage because you're operating as a modern company founded in the 21st century with a modern entrepreneur who knows the way of modern business. That's like the only difference. And the other one, which this one is purposeful for HIMS, is the idea that the drug is customized to you. And of course, the cynics will say, oh, well, the CEO, they customize the drugs because when you have a customized drug, it makes the product more sticky. That's a more cynical way to look at it, and I'm sure that plays in the reason as to why customized medications would be in the mind of some executives. But you also have a very clear medical reason. I don't understand why. I don't know, why is ibuprofen 200 milligram? Does every single human need 200 milligram ibuprofen when they have a headache? Maybe you're a shorter person and you don't weigh much. Maybe 95 milligram ibuprofen is better for you, and maybe you're a bigger guy, and maybe 200 milligrams doesn't really work for you, but 400 milligrams is a little too much, and so maybe you need 325 milligrams. Customization just makes a lot of sense, and a fully automated compounding warehouse can customize the drugs to people. It makes a lot of medical sense. In my view, we're all different. Why don't we have customized products? We probably should, and that's one of the way of the world. The products are becoming more and more customized, right? This is what the folks in marketing have called for decades now, one-to-one marketing. But that's the trend we are headed. And of course, traditional pharma, they have to make the most common sizes. And if you know anything about drugs, sometimes they tell you gotta break a drug in half, break it in half and stuff like that. So anyways, customization makes a lot of sense to me. These two things keep the product sticky. These 2 points here are why people keep coming back to HIMS and why people stick with their subscriptions to HIMS. There is another aspect that I want to emphasize on HIMS, and let's suppose we live in the 21st century, and you gotta refer to the people who create your top line, right? The people who pay for the service that you offer. In this case, health. How do you call them? Do you call them patients or do you call them customers? Well, of course, the 20th century is all about, patients. They're going to find different names for their customers, clients, etc. But at the end of the day, we live in the 21st century, and in the 21st century, customers, especially younger customers, have learned to love what I call the customer-centric era that we've entered. Amazon, but I could put Netflix, I could put all of these, worry-free guarantees. All of these businesses started in the 90s. A bunch of businesses started offering lifetime warranties, all of that sort of stuff. Sears actually, believe it or not, did a little bit of that and taught a little bit of the customer to be customer-centric. But let's say Amazon and other really modern-day companies, kind of the antithesis of the rent-seeking Standard Oil, for example, they've taught the modern day customer to be a king or a queen. And so you've heard this phrase, the customer is king or the customer is queen. And of course it makes some business people upset, but it makes the customer happy to be the king. And so I suspect people also want to be kings, and being patient doesn't sound as good as being a customer. Being a patient implies you have to. Being a customer implies you choose to. And speaking of that, let's go through simple examples, and that's the advantage that you get in compounded medication, in customized medication. So let's assume you are a male customer and you have ED, right? Let's assume that. Probably not very, probably very unfortunate, and you probably don't feel very happy about that if that happens. And so what do you prefer? Do you prefer an armless mint in this format? Still a RX, right? Compound, active compound, medical product, prescription, you still have to see someone. But do you prefer that? Or do you prefer Viagra? I mean, this has entered popular culture. Like, this has entered popular culture as a well-known thing. And I think the customer definitely wants that. I could go on beyond the ED. Let's talk about, let's assume a patient has multiple conditions, right? Unfortunate sometimes, but sometimes you have to take multiple pills a day. What would you prefer? Having a compounded drug like this, just one pill, you take one pill, and it's got multiple compounds? Or would you prefer to take two different pills? And of course, here, this medication includes those two pills, compounded and customized to exactly what you need in one. And if you go on the HIMS website, they go up to 5. They mix up to 5 different compounds in one single drug, easy to take. Because what happens is, and that's why we have things like pill packs, and people sometimes get pill packs, and you have a Monday, Tuesday, anyway, your dates and your pills, and they're pre-sorted. All of this can go away. The risk of patient adherence, the risk of skipping a pill, and how many people have skipped, if you're on medication, how many people have skipped a pill by mistake or something, that risk goes way down if you have something simple and you just have to take one pill and it includes everything you need. So it makes a lot of sense for medical reasons. And it's not just, in my view, it's not just a reason of if you have a customized drug, people are not going to switch because it's customized to you. There is also a pro-consumer reason. There's also a reason why it's better for a consumer. And consumers, they don't like to be rent-seeked. They don't like to be taken advantage of. The modern-day consumer, they want a product because that product is beneficial. Nobody likes to feel like they're getting ripped off. And when you see a company like HIMS that throws these growth numbers out there, the customers, in my view, from what I understand and from my reading about this company, the customers are pretty happy with the service that they're getting. Now, moving on to under the hood, to behind the hood, right? So I talk less about this. I talk a lot of product adoption on this channel and revenue growth. But of course, this company has outstanding gross margin. They're EBITDA profitable, right? Which is what I mostly care about. So they're earning money. And how does that work? Well, because they're highly efficient under the hood. They have their own facilities that mass manufacture compounded prescriptions, and they mail them. And they have 2 of them. They have one in Phoenix, one in Columbus. state of the art. So while in the old world, to serve 1.8, it's actually pretty easy to calculate because each pharmacy serves like 30,000 people. So to serve 1.9 million people at 30,000 people each, right? How many redundancies would you have? How many hundreds of pharmacies do you need? How many redundant tasks need to be done, right? How many people welcoming the customer? How many people typing in customer info in the computer, right? How many pharmacists checking? These efficiencies cannot be achieved with hundreds of physical stores, but HIMS can achieve that with a fully automated warehouse on the back end, which does the compounding, not fully automated, but quite heavily automated. You see, for example, packaging and machinery as full automation, right? And they have two, Arizona and Ohio, and they might have more in the future. Right. And the front end, how do you deal with a front end? Well, this is very informative if you read their last shareholder letter. They have been building and they have built their own electronic records management system. And if you know anything about healthcare, you know that hospital system, pharmacy, they very often are quick to use third-party software companies to run their business, not HIMS. HIMS built its own stack. Like if you follow healthcare, think about how big private company Epic is. Epic is like running so many different hospitals and so many different doctors' offices are being run by Epic. Well, I'm sorry, but some of that profit is running away towards Epic, right? If you build your own software in-house, behind the hood, you're going to be much more efficient because you don't have to pay for third-party services. You don't have to pay for software. And that's where I think HIMS shines. They have their own software, and so they've been able to implement their own exclusive innovations, such as a recommender system, MedMatch, right? And so you're watching this on YouTube. YouTube probably recommended this video to you because it knows you well. Well, the same happens in a recommender system for patients, right? Recommender systems are one of the early applications of AI. We've become really good at recommender systems. And so what's the future? Is the future of healthcare, your HIMS app pairing maybe with your medical tracking information, maybe pairing with your watch, maybe pairing with some running app or whatever data you have, and maybe you answer a few questions, and maybe MedMatch knows exactly what drug you need right away, and all it takes is a provider to double check that everything's okay, and then click a button and be like, oh yeah, okay, that's okay, and we should prescribe them that. Probably that's what it is, and it's much, much more efficient. Think about, have you been to the doctors in the US before? Think about how inefficient this is, right? You drive up, you go to the counter window, they tell you go upstairs or go to another office, another building. And then you pay, then they sit you down in the waiting area, then you have a nurse come in, the nurse walks you in the back, the nurse takes measurements that may or may not be needed, then you wait, then the doctors walk in, then you get walked out, then they take you out. Then maybe what you paid is not exactly what your insurance covers, so you have to see the secretary again. And then you get something in the mail, maybe. I mean, it's an administrative mess. The cost of healthcare has a huge share of inefficiency due to poor administration. You don't have that with a modern IT stack, and that's one of the reasons why I think HIMS is shining. Now, let me conclude and finish with the numbers. Where else can we find a company where the numbers look so good? This company is a classic case of operating leverage about to kick in. And so I'm making some assumption. You can look at their guidance. You can see year-over-year growth for 2024. We're halfway from 2024, granted, but let's assume we are looking at this in January 24. They had predicted 57 to 61%. So they're growing at, say, 59%. They say they're going to do this year $148 million. So and the company right now, after yesterday's drop, is $3.02 billion. So that's a pretty cheap company if you look at it this way compared to the growth, right? Growth is 59%, and the company is still making quite a bit of money. So let me just show you what I did here. I'm assuming two things. I'm assuming revenue is going to keep. And I realize maybe it's a bullish assumption, but I'm bullish on the company. If you follow the channel, you know I'm bullish on the company. I covered the company 30 times, right? I'm bullish. So, of course, I'm going to use bullish number take that with a grain of salt, and you can adjust down if you prefer to be more conservative. But let's assume that the revenue grows at 50%, and let's assume that adjusted EBITDA grows at 150%. Right, and that's not uncommon for a company this low. You could actually see EBITDA grow 300% when the company just became profitable. But let's just assume that, and if we assume that today, at the end of 2024, the company is trading at 20x cash flow, right? Adjusted EBITDA, which is my proxy for cash flow. Theoretical EBITDA yield or cash flow yield is about 5%. Let's fast forward to 25, right? So in 25, the sales grow another 50%, and then the EBITDA itself grows 150%. So you get 2.1 billion over 370 billion. That's 8x. So you're paying 8x 2025 EBITDA. That's a 12.5% theoretical forward yield. So that's getting much better for a company that is still growing extremely fast. And fast forward to 26, right? You get a 3.3x, assuming you buy the stock today at 3.02, and your theoretical forward yield is 30%. So this is the type of company that I love to own as a long-term investor, right? HIMS at $24, I still buy it, but I buy less. HIMS at $14, I double or triple my buys. And sure enough, I don't think I'm the only one who sees that. And this is a company that is qualitatively sound, whose business model, first and foremost, is qualitatively sound and fits squarely into the trends of business of today, and whose numbers are great from an operation standpoint and cheap from a valuation standpoint. So this is why I love this company. I love to own this company. This is now my third largest position. HIMS is now my third largest position, and I look forward to see them grow even more in my portfolio. So this was not investment advice. This is just entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, and follow me on X if you can. Thanks for your support. No advice ever on this channel. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.